My name is Don, and I'm a person in long-term recovery. I started this current recovery journey, October 6, 2009. So I have a general idea of what I want to share, but like Mike Tyson said, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. So, sometimes our emotions will punch us in the face, and sometimes we just get sidetracked. But what I'd like to talk about in my story today is the root core of what happened to me. What is the root of my problem? What was the root of my problem when I came into recovery, and how have I struggled with that over time? And then to make sure I end up in the right spot, what was the solution to that problem? So my youth was, first of all, I want to say I think there are some genetic pieces to this disease. The evidence bears that out. The research bears that out. My dad was a heroin addict for years. He died when I was 3 years old. He died in prison. He was killed in prison. My mom says she was an alcoholic at one time and that she could never drink again because I think she just did some really embarrassing stuff, and it's like, I don't want to do that anymore. So I don't know if she was actually an alcoholic, because there's a difference between. I think maybe she wasn't an alcoholic because she was able to go, yeah, I don't want to do that anymore. So, but she married alcoholics, and she married drug addicts, and so there was that piece. So my dad died. Mom always talked down about my dad and told me growing up, you're gonna be just like your dad, as a threat, as a talking down to, right, me. And my mom was really smart, and her way of connecting was with reason and not with heart. And so I constantly felt like everything that came out of her mouth was negative, right? I love you, but, right? And so, and my stepdad, she married when I was 4 or 5. She married a guy named Jim, who was the dad of he was my dad, but he was the father of my brothers, my 2 younger brothers. And he was a Norwegian farm boy, really emotionally distant, didn't share, he was quiet, he was withdrawn until he got angry, and then he was loud and he was scary. My mom was in her own little bubble. I didn't feel connected. I started getting in trouble really young in school. Get in trouble at school. Back then they'd spank you with these big old paddles with holes in them. Yeah. Smack! Some of you remember that. Yeah. I'd get in trouble at school, I'd get my ass whipped at school, and then I'd go home and get my ass whipped again at home because I got in trouble at school. And my ass whoopings at home were a little over the top and a little scary, and it taught me to fear confrontation, especially an angry, yelling man. I learned early on to run. And so I started running away from home really young, at like 7 years old. I started running away from home. And I got progressively worse. I'd run away from home and I'd shoplift and stuff for food while I was a runaway. Then I started getting in trouble, and the CPS got involved and asked me why I keep running away from home. And I was like, my stepdad is abusing me. And half truth, it was true, but it wasn't, you know what I mean? I don't think, and I'm not trying to minimize, I think he was doing the best he could with a kid he wasn't connected to that was getting progressively more and more out of control. And he was like, why can't this kid just listen? Maybe I'll spank sense into him. I'll make him get in line. But it didn't work. I didn't get in line. I got worse, right? And so a couple of things, or one thing I learned out of that was violence is a solution to problems. That's why not that I've never spanked my kid, but I really try hard to not, for that not to be the lesson early on, right? That there are other ways to work together and communicate and solve problems, right? Other than violence. Um, so I got following all that, CPS finally took me out of the home, and in my head, two things happened. Prior to that, they'd been taking me to therapy and medicating me, and right, and so I got two things happened when I got taken out of my home. Number one was a deep sense of abandonment that I carried with me, and another piece was I'm broken. Right? All the adults in my life are telling me I'm broken, telling me I'm going to be a piece of shit drug addict, telling me I'm going to be in jail when I grow up, telling me right, all these messages to me were not messages of love. They were messages of you're a fuck up. You're going to be over here like your dad was, right? And then that deep sense of abandonment. I was kind of a weird kid. I didn't know how to make friends. I lived at the very end of the road. There was nothing but fields, manzanita trees, and oak trees for 50 miles. That was my safe space, right? I spent a lot of time out in those fields, walking those creeks and building forts, and that was the place that I felt safe. I didn't feel safe around people. Um, so I got taken away and bounced around to a couple of foster homes. Ended up in a group home called His Haven. Uh, when I was about 11, I was in His Haven. Tony knows what I'm talking about. When I was about 11, I was in His Haven, and my sexual acting out started with some older boys that were in there, and from there, I ran away from there, got placed in another foster home that had significantly older foster brothers. And a couple of things happened there. Number one, I was introduced to, this is when I was 12, I was introduced to marijuana. They both sold pot in high school. And so I was introduced to marijuana, and I was like immediately in love with it, which is weird because a little bit later I was like, man, I can't get stoned. I'm super dumb on pot. But at that point, it was like, oh wow, I feel okay for the first time in my life, right? And I would take this weed and take it to school and be like, look what I got. Now I was somebody that people started liking me and talking to me. I wasn't the weird kid at the end of the street anymore, right? I began to fit in and find my little circle. The pot and the alcohol came. There had been alcohol before this, but at this point now it was alcohol until I blacked out. Right? I would drink whenever I could get it. I was smoking weed on a daily basis. I was getting in more and more trouble at school. But another thing that happened in that foster home was some more sexual acting out. Right, I learned from one of my older foster brothers, not both of them. One of my older foster brothers. Hey, you do this, I'll do you this. Right. So what I learned was, oh, I can use this sex stuff to get what I want. Right. More drugs. And with more drugs, I can get more social acceptance, and I can feel better about myself. And right, so there's a lot coalescing at that time in my life. A lot of pieces coming together that would really set the stage for later in my life. I can tell you between 12 and 14, those couple of years, daily drug use became my norm, my pattern. It's where I escaped to. I didn't have any friends that didn't use, and I didn't have any adults in my life showing me a different way to be. I mean, even my foster, we call her Nana. She was an old lady, and she was drunk every night. Right? She would drink herself to sleep every night. I didn't have anybody showing me a different way. Um, all the people that I hung out with were using drugs too. And I can tell you that somewhere in between me getting taken away and that age of 14, and I'll get to that in a second because that kind of shoots a different direction. In between there, I learned criminal behavior. I started breaking into cars, breaking into houses, and taking what I wanted. I was shoplifting. I would go and visit my birth mom and steal from her. I became a thief, and my criminal patterns started becoming really obvious. And what goes along with that, and what I really want to talk about in my story today, is in Narcotics Anonymous, they talk about the triangle of self-obsession. And in Alcoholics Anonymous, they talk about self-centeredness being the root of our problem, right? In Sex Addicts Anonymous, they talk about the bubble of self, right? Where when I get into this sexual stuff over here, I'm bubbled off and nothing else is real. No consequences, no, right? I'm in a bubble of self that I can't escape from. And that took root for me in between the age of 12 and 14. By the time I was 14 years old, it was all about me, how I felt, what I wanted. Nobody else had my back. I couldn't depend on, right? Coming back to that sense of abandonment, being taken away and being given up, and my mom not fighting for me, and you know what I mean, all that stuff. I don't fit in with anybody else. I'm always going to be a loser and a drug addict. Well, fuck it then. Fine. That's what I'm going to fucking be. And I just embrace that self-centeredness, and I got to take care of me. Right? The only thing that matters is me. And about that time, the state, the county finally got tired of me breaking into cars and being a shit kid, and sent me to a place, locked me up until I was 18, in a place called ISOT. Tony was there. We were there together. Um, and I got some good things out of that. Number one, I stopped doing drugs for 4 years. So it kind of halted, or not halted, it actually gave me a jump, right? Because up until that point, I hadn't learned any skills about emotional management or, controlling my emotions and living with other people and all those skills, because I was just a fucking street kid running around getting high all the time. So they put me in this place, and there was a lot of restraint, a lot of Don freaking out and trying to kick people in the nuts and getting restrained and put in the quiet room. And um, by the end of that, though, I learned to somewhat control all that shit. I learned, like, all right, well, kicking people in the nuts is probably going to get me fucking restrained and thrown in the fucking quiet room. Maybe I shouldn't fucking kick people in the nuts. Okay? So I got to stop doing drugs and get a little bit of growth, right? To figure out a little bit of who I was. That was the time of my spiritual awakening, where I began to really, like, the book Seven Arrows. I don't know how many of you in here, Black Elk Speaks. Some of those books came into our possession when we were in there, and it began an awakening, right? Like curiosity of, man, because my mom was really Baptist. My stepdad is really Baptist now. He was, I don't know what he was back then. He was going to church. But when they took me to church, like, I would go out the back window of the Sunday school, go around to where they kept all the offerings from the first service, and I'd dip into those offerings and dip out and go down to fucking the store and buy a bunch of candy. And that was my experience at church. Like, I had no respect for church at all because I had no respect for my parents or anybody else that was in them. So I started this other spiritual growth stuff. But what it also started was a pattern that, all right, I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna graduate. They're gonna let me go when I graduate high school. I was graduated high school a little bit early. It was a court school. I just had enough credits. So I graduated a little bit early. Me and Tony got out the same day. Um, I graduated a little bit early and I didn't have nowhere to go. But one of the people that was a social worker for me when I was younger was like, I'll take him in, but you got to go to meetings and you can't do drugs and you know, I mean, all those pieces. I was like, all right, sweet. I want to do drugs. Um, and I'll go to meetings. And I went to meetings. This was 1990. So I started going to Narcotics Anonymous in 1990. I didn't show up in Narcotics Anonymous till much later, but I started going to the meetings. It was my introduction to Narcotics Anonymous. It told me, hey, there's this group of people over here that are doing some fucking weird shit that that I don't quite understand, but I know it's a safe spot, right? Put that message in my mind. But the bigger pattern that happened is I'm going to get out and do good, and then I didn't, right? I got out, did the same shit. I didn't change anything. And probably a month it took me before I started. It was actually, I think, with Tony and Ronald, our other brother, and Gerald. I believe it was before Gerald died. Oh, me and Tony were in the backseat of the car, and I hadn't smoked weed in like fucking 5 years or 4 years. And we drove up to Shasta Dam, and they passed back this joint. I was like, oh yeah, grabbed that sucker and was hitting on it, and Tony was hitting on it. And I looked at Tony and I said, this like 20 minutes later, I said, I'm never gonna smoke weed again. I was so fucking stoned that I couldn't fucking like, it was scary. I was so stoned I was scared, you know what I mean? And I was like, I'm never fucking with this shit again. Fucking finish this. And I didn't. After that, I was just kind of done with weed. But I found meth really soon after that. Well, if I'm done with meth, if I'm done with weed, I better fucking replace it with something else, right? So meth became my thing, and I became a daily meth user really fast. Once I started fucking with that meth, I was like, love of my life. All right, I am committed. I am loyal to this drug. I would still drink, but it was only around certain people, or when I couldn't get meth. Beer was pretty cheap, right? I didn't have any days of pure sobriety for a long time, clean time, right? I didn't get any clean time out there on the streets. So I don't want to stay in the problem for a long time. I would tell you that the triangle of self-obsession and the self-centeredness and the bubble of self continued to strengthen over time. At one point, I was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder. For those of you that don't know, it's like sociopath, Jeffrey Dahmer kind of, you know, right? Well, what that really means is like, I don't give a fuck about the consequences. I'm not even thinking about how me robbing you makes you feel. Right? That's sociopath. It was a misdiagnosis. I know that today. Right? I'm not a sociopath. I don't have that personality disorder. But all of my behavior at the time, I met the criteria. I had all the symptoms of being a sociopath. Because for me, again, in that bubble of self, I didn't give a fuck. I mean, I did on some level. Like, I try not to rip off my friends, the people that mattered to me in my life, but everybody else is fucking fair game. And I would roam around town looking for cars to break into, looking for houses to break into, looking for any way to secure to secure what I was truly loyal to, which was my drug. I ended up robbing my stepdad's house. I heard he was out of town, and me and a couple of guys went in, and I went in for the guns, because I knew he had guns. and the other guys went in and stole a bunch of other stuff, but I went in for the guns. Um, mom, mom was the one that told me he was out of town, so when his house got robbed, mom put two and two together and fucking told on me. So there's more resentment to mom, right? Fucking cop calling bitch, how dare she, right? Abandons me, and then fucking abandons me again by calling the fucking police on me, and right. So now, along with my self-centeredness, I'm developing rage, developing fucking deep, deep resentment, and I'm also over this time period. I'm like 20, or 19 at this time. Over this time period, besides the resentments and the rage that I was building up inside myself, um, there was a deep sense of hopelessness, a deep sense of I don't want to fit into this fucking world. I don't want to be a 9-to-5 slave. That's what I call it. I want to be like my mom, who goes to work every fucking day and is miserable. I don't want fucking nothing to do with this fucked up world. Fuck the world, right? That was the thing back then. FTW. Yeah. Right? We had it tattooed on us. Fuck the world. And that was deep inside of me. And so I'm stuck in this bubble of self. Inside this bubble of self, I'm fucking angry, right? And inside this anger, the root of this anger was this fear that I'm not good enough, that I'm not understood, that people don't really fucking like me, right? Because I wasn't deeply connecting with anybody. That the world sucked, right? That's where I sat at 20 years old. And it's not a comfortable place to sit. And the only way I could cope with that discomfort was using meth. Was a great numbing agent. On meth, I became more sociopathic, didn't give a fuck, became more criminal, hurt more people. I didn't have to feel what was going on in here, because what was going on in here was really dark. It was fucking depressing, and half the time I wanted to die. I didn't want to kill myself. I wanted somebody else to fucking kill me. I just didn't want to fucking live here. I didn't want to be here anymore. I didn't want to be in this world. I didn't fit in this world. I totally related to that piece of this story. I was like, yeah, me too. I never felt like I fit in anywhere. I didn't know how to connect to people. So there is the problem side of my story. A deep sense of fucking self-centeredness, anger, and fear. That's who I was when I came into recovery this time. Multiple prison terms later, multiple hurting a lot of people later, multiple, right? I don't even need to share the middle of my story because it looks the same day in, day out, right? Get on meth, commit crimes, go to fucking prison, get out, be like, I'm not fucking with that meth no more, but not being in the solution. Going back to the rooms to Narcotics Anonymous, never working any steps, never getting a sponsor, never being of service, never treating this core of my problem, which was not drugs. Right? It was this other stuff. And the drugs were my solution, they were my medicine, they were the way I coped with this stuff. Years later, passing through the middle of my story, I was filled with shame from weird ass fucking sexual shit because I'd never learned about healthy sex. I was taught from a young age, you do this, fucking get what you want, use people, and right, I never had sex with somebody I liked. It's fucking weird, for real. I used sex to feel better about myself. Oh, somebody needs me, right? There's that side of it. I was a hunter. I'll put it that way. I used people, and I used people for drugs. The people I was having sex with had dope. Right? That's my truth. And I did some really some stuff I don't share around that stuff. some stuff I'm fucking embarrassed about. Collected a bunch of shame. I developed in that whole fucking mess like gender dysphoria, and I didn't know if I was a boy or a girl, and you know what I mean? I was just all over the fucking map. I didn't know what I was turned on by, and when I got clean, it changed everything again. So I was really a fucking mess when I came in here this time. Filled with that original stuff, and now on top of all that, I got all this fucking shame and guilt and fucking federal government labeling me a fucking sociopath, and I was fucking messy when I came in here. So I'm gonna skip to the fucking beginning of my recovery story now. My recovery story started in 2008 when I came up here to Montana. And I was running from some legal shit. I was a 3-striker, had 2 strikes down in California, and the 3rd strike, you're out. They're done with you, they're gonna lock you up and throw away the key. And so me and my cousin and his old lady fucking all kind of ran up here, and really this was a pass through. We were headed for Siberia because we were like, fuck this country, we'll go to Russia. It's gotta be better over there, especially in Siberia. That's drug battle thoughts. But so we got here, law caught up to us here. Sent my cousin and his old lady back to fucking California, or California came and got them. But for whatever reason, again, I give this piece to God, they didn't come get me. And they held me in jail for 30 days down here for a bullshit fucking knife charge, just because and they told me, they were like, we're only holding you to see if California's gonna come get you. But it was a bullshit misdemeanor, concealed knife charge. California did not come get me, and I got out of jail, and I had been for a long time tired. I don't want to fucking do this anymore. Fucking, this sucks. This lifestyle sucks. I've already done it all. Now it's just repetition of suckiness. You know, it's not exciting anymore. It's just ongoing sucky. And so I really wanted to do something different. Tony's mom moved down to Mission. We were travel housing down there. I was staying away from all the fucking meth and all the things that I thought was the problem. Got down there, started drinking. It was just a dark ale with a dinner. A dark ale turned into 2 dark ales, turned into fucking 6 dark ales, turned into fucking, you guys know the story. It didn't turn into meth, which is the difference this time, right? If some things hadn't happened, it would have turned into meth, because that's my story over and over and over again. So I was drinking, doing fucking dumbass criminal shit, thinking I was doing it smartly, but I was doing it with an FBI informant, so what do you do? They built a case on me, raided me, and put me in fucking federal prison, and this time I couldn't blame it on meth. And I realized, man, this isn't even about my drinking. Those were just like pieces of this fucking larger puzzle of Donna's sick. Donna's not okay. And Donna's never been okay. Donna doesn't know what it feels like to be okay. And I have some serious criminal fucking issues going on. I got some serious sexual fucking issues going on. I got some serious not being able to fucking connect issues going on. Fear, rage, shame, fucking all this stuff. And I'm sitting in fucking jail again, on my way to fucking prison again. And I thought I was gonna be gone for a long. I was looking at like fucking 120 years, something like it. If they would max, you never get maxed out, but if they would have chose to max me out, it was a long time. So I thought, and they were talking about career criminaling me, which is kind of the Fed's 3 strikes you're out thing, but it's less severe. They just tack on another fucking 12 years or whatever to your sentence. So I called my mom and I'm like, I don't think they're gonna let me out for a long time. I think this is it. and that sucks. And I just want to tell you I love you. And she came up and saw me, visited me in the Missoula jail. That was the last time I ever saw my mom. And while I was in there, um, I got to really fucking think about, I can't blame this on drugs and alcohol anymore. The dawn is fundamentally broken. Every time I've come to jail and fucking gotten out, I've gotten out with this, I'm not gonna fuck around this time. I'm gonna do things right this time. I'm gonna get out and go to school and change my life, and you know what I mean? So I got to really take a look at, well, how come that never happened? Right? How come I never fucking changed my life? I'd go to school, I'd start changing my life, and then it would all fucking fall apart and I'd relapse and be back in fucking jail. Um, I couldn't blame it on drugs this time. Wasn't even drugs involved. It was just dawn was broken. And something in me shifted with that understanding. Right? With the understanding that it's probably not going to be different this time either. This is fucking my truth, right? If something doesn't fucking change, this is going to be the story of my life for the rest of my life. I don't want this. I looked around that fucking prison yard and I was like, I don't like any of these motherfuckers. I don't like fucking prison. I don't like the fucking guards. I don't like fucking anybody, and I don't even fucking like myself, right? But I don't want to fucking do this anymore. What does that mean? What does that leave me? What did I not do last time? That's the stuff I got to take a look at. I begged. They sent me to a CTAP where I got to do the RDAP program. Got to look at some criminal thinking errors, and you know, I mean, do those pieces of the treatment. Started going to meetings. We had AA come in one week and NA come in one day and AA come in another day. I was always at those meetings and started taking this journey really, really serious and started writing. You know, I started doing steps. Them guys that were H&I people that were coming in, they were working me through the steps. Couldn't sponsor me, but they kind of do what I do now with the groups that I do when I walk through the steps. They were teaching me the tools. Because when I read the literature, I wasn't getting the tools. I wasn't wrapping my head around what is this fucking fourth step? How do you even fucking work it, right? I didn't understand. They started helping me understand. And in that, in the actual putting pen to fucking paper and looking at this fucking stuff, I began to understand that these things that were my problem, number one, started really fucking early in my life and then built on it. Right? That I had some some trauma to unpack in here. I had a lot of stuff I was carrying around, and I didn't know how to cope with that stuff. So I'm in there doing my fourth step, and I'm like, oh man, I am self-centered and dishonesty all the way down the fucking column on every fucking resentment that I had. There was dishonesty, there was self-centeredness, there was, you know, these pieces, and I'm beginning to see a pattern, and I'm like, fuck, no wonder when nobody wants to fucking hang out with me and connect with me. I'm a self-centered, fucking dishonest, intolerable, right, inconsiderate fucking human being. No wonder I can't deeply connect with people. Started working on my honesty. That was my first character defect that I attacked, and I would really beat myself because I saw the dishonesty. I was like, man, it can't be right. I'm not a dishonest guy. I call it the way I see it, right? So I started paying attention, and sure enough, these old fucking bullshit fucking stories and lies. I'd be out at the table with my homies, and some old fucking story would come up that I told so many times I fucking believed it, right? To try to make me look better, to try to make them see me in a different light, because I was so afraid that people wouldn't like the real me, because the real me felt like a coward, felt like a failure, felt like fucking a pervert and a weirdo, and you know, that stuff that I was carrying around. And so I would lie and try to be something I wasn't, somebody I wasn't, and tell stories that I never fucking did or half did. You know what I mean? I would embellish, and I began to see these patterns here. And I'd be out there, and I'd be in there working on my steps, and I'd come out to the fucking table under the fucking TV, and some bullshit would come out of my mouth. Fuck, I did it again. I'd go in there and fucking think about it and write about it. And why do I keep fucking doing this? Why am I such a fucking liar? Why can't I just fucking stop doing this, right? What I learned in that whole situation is we don't attack our character defects. What I learned later in the steps is we just practice something different. And that takes care of the character defects, right? If we practice spiritual principles, then we do less of the opposite, right? So I learned a valuable lesson out of that because I really fucking beat myself up in there over that shit. I was like, man, I can't fucking stop lying. So I got out and came back to this community. Tony was here by that time. He had moved up here from California. He let me come live with him. And this time was different because I knew what I didn't do all the other times, right? From 1990 to 2012, right? I continued to make the same mistakes. And the biggest mistake was I never actually gave the steps a shot. Right? I never worked my steps. I'd go to fucking meetings. I even got a sponsor once or twice, but I never worked the steps. And the connection, I never connected either. Right? I never did service work. I did a couple of events, but it was like I still felt like an outsider. I didn't feel like you were my people. Right? I just felt like, well, this is a safe place for me to be and not fucking use. And I never really deeply connected because I didn't know how to connect to people. I didn't know how to fucking talk to people clean. All I knew how to do was fucking tell bullshit war stories and talk about this fucking rat over here and this fucking pedo over here and I mean, whatever. I didn't know how to talk to people. And I didn't feel like that if people knew me, they would love me. I didn't feel lovable. That's not the message I grew up with. So this time, when I came into recovery, I was like, hi, I need to do all the things I didn't do before. I need to work these fucking steps. They're telling me, right? Suggesting to me, look, this is what we're doing. And I'm seeing people fucking with good lives. They're saying, we work the steps. We get a sponsor. We fucking practice really uncomfortable stuff. We be of service, right? We start treating this self-centeredness that we come into here with. And so I was desperate enough in my life at this time to actually begin doing these things, doing the things that I had never done before. And I began almost immediately to see the results, right? To see a different result than I had gotten before. A change, a shifting that was happening inside of my spirit. I began to understand in working through these steps, I began to understand my fears and my resentments and my shames and all this stuff. I was like, oh man, no wonder I felt like a piece of shit. No wonder I fucking needed to numb out on meth. Look at all this stuff I was fucking carrying around. And nobody taught me how to deal with it until somebody taught me the steps. Right? That as an adult was something I could wrap my head around, and now I was learning how to fucking deal with this stuff. How to cope, how to fucking resolve this old stuff that I've been carrying around for all these fucking years. Went to meetings every day. If I missed a meeting, I'd make it up on the weekend. We were talking about Grant earlier in the room next door here. Grant was my one meeting buddy, and Tony was my other meeting buddy. And fucking we were hitting them as much as we could. I was a daily meeting goer for the first 5 years of my recovery. So I put the security blanket of the fellowship around me. I got really serious about service work. Back then we didn't really have Narcotics Anonymous up and running in our area, so my thing was AA. And actually, the way I learned to work the steps was AA too. That was my foundation. I began to do service work, and I began to be less self-centered, less stuck in the bubble of myself. I began to understand that I got relief by helping other people, right? By being a part of rather than apart from. I got relief by looking at this stuff in my past and fucking consciously letting it go. You know, that's okay if that happened. I can let that go. I began to heal on this journey, and to this day, like the reason I am in this field, I've wanted to run away from this never alone thing, and you know what I mean. I wanted to run away a bunch of fucking times. I stay here and I keep doing this, and it's been the driving force and passion behind us like getting this thing up and running is two pieces. Number one, I had some bad karma with society, right? And I wanted to balance that out. So part of it was 9-step stuff, living amends, right? I want to balance out karma. And then another, that piece is good with me now. I'm good with that piece. I feel like I fucking have given back, right? I've made it up. I hurt a lot of people in my addiction and in my recovery. I've helped a lot of people. So I feel relief in that. Just one more piece along this journey, right? Of that our end goal of serenity. I can sit inside my own skin. I'm okay with Dom. Right? It's all these pieces that we got to go through to get to that piece. But the other piece is the service, right? And it's service for me. It's not service to you guys. It's service to God. Right? That I am in service to God, and what that does is it treats the self-centeredness. Right? Okay, am I making this all about fucking Don again? It's my pattern. I want to make it all about Don, right? Can I let this be about something bigger? Can I let this be about somebody else? Right? Do I have to take your fucking feelings into my fucking bubble? Not always, but I can sit and be compassionate and empathetic with you. So it's for me, a turning point happened for me in Sweat Lodge. Sweat Lodge has always been a really important piece in my spiritual journey. Some of my deepest spiritual experiences have happened in the lodge, and in the lodge in Tony's front yard. I got the message of my duty. What is your duty? Why are you here, Don? It was in between. It was in between rounds when I was just sitting in there by myself, right? And I'm like, oh, this, and the voice stopped me, and the voice is like, no, Don, your duty is to love, right? And that shook me to my core and shifted me in that final shift outside of that bubble of self-centeredness. And I began to understand the healing that comes along with that, right? If I could live that spiritual principle, I could just love the people around me, my community, the area I live in, my creator, right? Then I'm gonna be okay. I fucking rode with that, and I've been okay, right? So there was, from this bubble of self-centeredness that was the root of my fucking problem, right? All the fear and the stuff, right? That created this bubble of self-centeredness in me. From that space, I got to work my way out of it slowly but surely. Putting pen to paper, contemplating, meditating, praying, a lot of fucking praying. Oh, Creator, I am gonna get myself in trouble again. Please take this away from me, right? Help me to be of service. Teach me what it means to love, because I don't know. It's not something I was taught as a kid. Certainly not something I practiced as an adult in my active addiction. Teach me how to live in a different way. Help me to be okay. The last words out of my mom's mouth, I was in between being transferred from one prison to another. I was in a woman's prison down in Dublin, and I got to make a phone call, and I called her. She had cancer at this time. The cancer was getting bad. She was going through chemo treatments, and we were conversating, and I was telling her how excited I was about recovery, and she'd heard it all before. Right? And she said, Don, all I've ever wanted is to see you be okay. And then she had to get off the phone and went and puked and she was getting sick from the chemo. And that was the last words I ever heard out of my mom's. Still hits me, right? We got our stuff. But it was also a shifting point in my life. Yeah, I've never been okay. My mom has never seen me be okay. It was a shifting point and a piece of motivation. I wanted to honor my mom, right? So I started fucking getting serious and doing all the things I'd never done before. I just wanted to be okay. And I wanted my mom to know it was okay. We all have different motivations for coming in here. You know, the biggest motivation is, what kind of life is that? What kind of life do I want? Am I worth it? Can I get past these lies I've been telling myself? Can I come out of this fucking self-centered bubble of fucking self that's miserable and dark and lonely and fucking enter a different world, find different results? What I learned is, yeah, that is possible. And I didn't fully believe it in the beginning. You know, I was looking at getting out, coming back to Tony's house, and I didn't have any experience that said this time was going to be different. I half expected, and Tony was married to Lori at that time, and Lori's been my relapse buddy a bunch of times. So I half expected me and her to fucking relapse together, right? I didn't know if Tony was going to marry. I didn't have any experience. I didn't know. I was scared. But I tried. I gave it 100%. Right? And I had faith. And I had hope. I don't even know that I had faith. Right? I had hope. I was holding on to fucking hope again, and I was doing things differently this time. And I can tell you today, I could have never 10 years ago, at the beginning of this thing, I guess it was a little bit longer than 10 years ago, coming out of prison, I could have never imagined where I would be today, right? Not just like career-wise, and I had a family and a car and all the stuff that I'd never had before, right? So I came out of poverty. I never had any of that stuff. I had a car, it was stolen. So what I have today, beside all that, and the family piece has become very, very important to me. I've become a father, a partner in life. It really helps me fucking practice my not being fucking self-centered. I still get in that bubble, right? But I have a partner and kids to help pull me out of that, or remind me, oh no, that's not what you want to do. But the biggest thing I can say today, aside from all the outwardly stuff, like, yes, my life is been successful. I give that to God because God told me to work certain spiritual principles and it produced results, right? So that wasn't a Don thing. Don just kept suiting up and fucking showing up and keeping my fingers crossed and doing the best I fucking could. Like, that was God's stuff. God promising, hey, live in this way and it'll produce different results. I promise you. And I trusted that. Take me by the hand and walk me through this. The biggest piece of my recovery today, okay. I never felt okay. Today I feel okay. Right? Not just okay, I feel good. I'm proud of myself. Right? I'm proud of myself. I got good fucking people in my life. I sit okay in my own skin today. That's new. Right? I have serenity today. I like sitting by myself. I still struggle with sitting with people, but I like my time with me. That's new. Before I couldn't spend any time with myself at all without fucking like meth and being weird and you know what I mean, whatever. Today I don't need any of that stuff. I can sit inside of my skin and feel good about me, where I am in my life, my connection with God, my connection with my community, right? That's different. And that's what I don't want to lose, and that's the gift the Creator has given me. for just following instructions. Follow the simple instructions, practice these principles. This is what I will give you. I didn't give me a vision, but looking back, right? That was the message. And just do what you're told. Right? Follow some fucking simple suggestions to live life in a different way. Put some work into this. Right? You got to fucking do this work. And back then it was, I hope you have my back. And now it's wow, God had my back. Right? This thing that we're doing produces results. And that's my message to you today. Thank you.